Pitino, fresh off of his first victory leading the Iona Gales, makes his home debut as Morgan State is in town to take on Iona. With Adam Finkelstein, I'm David Resnick. The Gales come in at 1-1. The Bears of Morgan State with the same record. And let's jump into our players to watch, brought to you by Professional Physical Therapy.
Well, for the Gales, Isaiah Ross has been playing at a tremendous rate over the course of his first two games, putting up huge numbers, over 30 last game. And I'll tell you, exceeding everyone's expectations thus far, shot maker and a scorer. Look for him to do big things again tonight. And then for Morgan State, the guy to watch, number 1, Troy Baxter, the Florida Gulf Coast transfer. He's 6'9", 200 pounds, can score in all spots of the floor, leads a number of individual talents on this Morgan State squad.
We're looking at a couple of teams that will play pressure defense, that will run up and down the floor. And let's take a look at the starting lineups brought to you by the Hospital for Special Surgery. For Morgan State, they're making a change to their starting 5. In the first 2 games, they used their same unit, but today, the senior Victor Okafor makes his first appearance of the year after playing 25 games as a reserve a season ago. As for Iona, they'll roll out the same lineup they used in a win over the weekend against Hofstra. So we'll see Nelly Jr. Joseph and Dylan Von Eyck come off the bench again this afternoon. Iona in the home whites for the first time since March, taking on Morgan State in the blue. Gales with the opening possession.
Ryan Myers, the freshman from Christ the King High School, getting the start at the point for the Gales.
And an offensive foul called against the Gales. Dwayne Karoma gets called for the personal.
You see it right off the bat. Iona's going to pick up full court pressure. The Rick Pitino system that we're seeing so far with Iona, very similar to what we've seen over the course of his Hall of Fame career. A lot of pressure defense, trying to get deflections and force turnovers.
It's a backdoor look and a good find from Granson to find Malik Miller, the leading scorer for the Bears, to open up the scoring. 2-0 Morgan State.
Well, a little bit of a breakdown there. And what you're going to see from this Morgan State team is a lot of pressure defense, like you said, David, but some Princeton offense concepts as you see them move without the ball in that first possession.
Miller scoops it up and pushes it to Baxter.
Kevin Broda spent a long time at Georgetown working under JT3, John Thompson III, who, of course, had that Princeton pedigree from his time at his alma mater.
A change from the lineup that we were given. Sherwin Devonish Prince is in there, so instead of Okafor, so the same starting 5 for all 3 games, as a blocking foul is called against the Bears. Trying to take the charge there was Trevor Moore.
Well, Karoma got left a little bit in no man's land because Ryan Myers tried to space out to the 3-point line on that 3-on-2. I think he thought, Karoma that he was going to run the lane, look for that lay-in.
The victory was 82-74 on the road against Hofstra, the defending CAA champs and the preseason number 1 in a conference that is more highly regarded than the MAC. Here's Ross, the 3rd leading scorer in the country, pulling up for a triple that's short. It'll stay with the Gales.
And, you can just see the progression of Ross, even in his body. I mean, I would guess he's wearing about 8 to 10 pounds of increased muscle mass from where he was at last year, but it is an immediately noticeable difference in his physique.
In the offseason, the coaching staff of Iona credited Ross's work in that regard, and after losing the ball, Robert Brown commits the foul. It is back to the Bears with the early 2-0 lead.
Going to get our first look at Nelly Jr. Joseph here, the freshman. Well, he got to the table not quite in time, so going to have to wait a possession.
It was a strategy that Pitino deployed against Hofstra, starting Karoma and Brown, worrying about them picking up early fouls, and then Junior Joseph and Von Eyck came off the bench and contributed in a big way. Foul is on the floor. The drive by Beric Jean-Louis.
Good first step there by Jean-Louis. He can get to that right side. He can get downhill very quickly.
Malik Miller gets called for the foul. Home debut for Nelly Jr. Joseph checking in. Will take the spot of Brown. Coming off of a 14-point, 10-rebound performance in 30 minutes off the bench last time out. Myers got caught. Jean-Louis traveled.
And Morgan State right now is just completely face guarding Isaiah Ross. No matter where he is on the floor, they are denying him a catch. So we'll see if Iona looks to get him an easy one with a back cut or does something to free him up here.
What makes Pitino pressure?
You know, I wish I knew. But if everybody knew the secret, it wouldn't be. I'll say this. I think one of the things, in my mind, there's three things historically that he's been most known for. One is the pressure defenses, as you mentioned. But I think the second thing is he was the first guy to really figure out the value of the three-point shot, in my estimation. And then the third part of that is the commitment to personal development. I mean, guys get better, and they have at every stop in his illustrious coaching career.
Granson with the three, a steal and a push to Moore. It's a 7-0 start for Morgan State on the road here in New Rochelle, and the Gales call timeout, a 30-second timeout. That is brought to you by North End Tavern.
Well, it's just been a lot of mental breakdowns here, from missed defensive assignments to turnovers. Obviously, Coach Pitino is going to want to clean that up quickly, and you can bet this is a little bit of an uncomfortable huddle over there.
Hired in March, coaching his first game here in New Rochelle in December. With the victory over Hofstra, he became the fourth different coach, joining Jim Boeheim, Mike Krzyzewski, and Cliff Ellis, currently the head coach at Coastal Carolina, to win a game as a head coach in college in 6 different decades. Iona now his 6th different head coaching job in college. Offensive. Ross using that off arm, and Moore this time draws the charge.
Beat him to the spot right there. Moore's done a really nice job on him defensively. Moore is a Cincinnati transfer, known primarily for his ability to catch and shoot from behind the three-point line, but doing a nice job on the defensive end to start here.
A lot of high major transfers on this Morgan State roster. Casey Stanley, an assistant coach for Iona, said, at this moment, without Gist and Shima in our lineup, they probably have more talent on the floor today. The drive to the rim and the finish. Sherwin Devonish Prince.
We'll talk about being able to get downhill. Really did a nice job there, turning the corner and then accelerating in a straight line to the rim. Wasted no motion on that drive.
Nine straight points for the Bears to open up play. And an errant pass thrown by Myers. It's another Iona turnover, something they cut down on from game 1 to game 2. And Talik Chavez will check in for Myers after the ill-advised pass.
Well, you know, this is really a adjustment for Ryan Myers in more ways than one. Not just because he's a freshman adjusting to a Hall of Fame coach in the college level for the first time, but because he's really playing with the ball in his hands more consistently than he ever has before. I mean, coming up the ranks, more of a scorer, two-guard, if you will, than a primary ball handler.
Jean-Louis with the rebound. He'll take it across the timeline. 4 minutes gone by into an opening half in which Iona has not scored. Great two-man game, but Chavez couldn't finish.
That's as good of a possession as they've had, though. Got good action. Nice short shot, 2 feet inside the paint.
Miller on the move. A bounce pass that's interrupted and taken away. Chavez, headman feed. Oh, the athleticism. Barrick Jean-Louis, an emphatic slam to open up the scoring for the Gales.
Well, and that's exactly what they're looking to do. Get out in transition, create offense from their defense, and you see the athleticism there as Jean-Louis rises up and hammers the big-time flush.
We heard all offseason long the athleticism as Granson answers with another triple, and Barrick showed it there.
And what an answer there. I mean, to put this in perspective, Granson is 6'8", 235 with a chiseled body type. So when you start to think about the overall talent level that Kevin Brodus has assembled on this Morgan State team, that possession gave you a good glimpse at it.
Junior Joseph squeezing his way between a couple of opponents to bring down that rebound. We head to break with a timeout on the floor. Iona is trailing by 10. The only highlight so far, Jean-Louis running the floor and throwing it down.
About now. The new prime rib and fried egg biscuit at Hardee's. Feed your happy.
Morgan State, located in Baltimore, Maryland. It's Maryland's largest HBCU. They're part of the MEAC Conference, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, a league that is celebrating 50 years of existence. 6th all-time meeting between these schools. Iona perfect 5-0. Dates all the way back to 1983. Pat Kennedy was the head coach. Last time they played 2001. That was under the watch of Jeff Ruland.
Been a while, to say the least.
This is a matchup that was originally scheduled, then taken off, and then these teams re-engaged on Friday when George Mason had to back out of a scheduled game with Morgan State. Just be ready, everybody, players, coaches, broadcasters, those that work the table, officials.
Keep your phone on.
Transition 3 is off the front of the rim. Torian Ware missed the mark. And a loose ball foul is heading Iona's way.
Well, just today, so we're at a 3 o'clock tip at the beginning of the day today. We've already seen Quinnipiac and Siena had to take the pause. And this is an Iona team that was expected to travel to Quinnipiac this weekend. So some adjusting in the schedule, I'm sure, still bound to happen in their near future.
But that trip to Quinnipiac, of course, was preceded by hosting Monmouth here in New Rochelle this week. So that weekend has changed quite a few times for the Gales.
And remember, they had that what was going to be the home opener against Merrimack canceled just the day of the game last week. So I've said this before, and I just really think it's true. The team that is the most flexible is going to have a huge advantage this year, and flexibility is not a characteristic of most college basketball coaches or players. They are very much creatures of habit.
Pushing in was Baxter, got his own miss. The follow, no. Out of bounds, it'll stay with Morgan State.
You can see the talent level there, though, of Baxter. We talked about him in the opener with that kind of size and length, coupled by the versatility in his skill set and the way that he can score the ball from multiple spots on the floor. He's a special talent for Kevin Brodus.
Casey Stanley of Iona called him a pro talent. His head coach, Brodus, as he lost his footing on the catch, said a lot of it will be determined by his mental makeup. But he also said that when he's clicking, we're clicking. Working his way back from injury, junior season in which he was hampered late in the year. 6'9", 200 pounds from Tallahassee, Florida. Iona only has 2 points. The Jean-Louis dunk in transition, the only bucket so far. Junior Joseph positioning, but too strong.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was a really good rotation from the weak side of the floor there by Ware, who took away what would have otherwise been an easy 2 for Nelly Junior Joseph.
We've played 7 minutes. Morgan State's defense, their identity has been terrific. Baxter.
Yeah, I thought he walked first, to be honest.
Morgan State holds on to possession with the arrow in their favor.
Karoma's got those long arms and strong frame. He's a really imposing physical presence. Got a ton of potential versatility on the defensive end as well.
Isaiah Burke who started 23 games last year, one of 4 returning starters, but he's coming back from a foot injury, so he's been a reserve so far this year, is checked in. Good defense by Caroma and Chavez. Despite the struggles offensively, down by just 10, Jean-Louis indecisive.
Well, and Chavez was doing his best to direct the show there, even without the ball in his hands.
One of 8 for Iona to start.
More of a perimeter-oriented lineup here. 3 true guards on the floor, going to pick up the pressure, try and change the pace of this game.
No Asante Gist. The hope is that he returns this weekend. No Colton Cashaw. So the only 2 true point guards on the roster and 2 returners not available for Rick Pitino and company. Junior Joseph the block, but a foul on the floor as Ware took it to the tin.
Get another look at that here. Watch Caroma rotate to help on the dribble penetration. He was actually, I thought, in good guarding position there, and then just adjusted and reached down on it. All he had to do was maintain his ground because he had Junior Joseph coming behind him to protect the rim.
First made free throw for Datorian Ware. Transfer from Jacksonville State. Real good scorer off the bench for this Bears team. Had 24 points and 6 3-pointers in just 22 minutes in a victory over Lincoln, a school in Pennsylvania that competes at the Division II level for the Bears' first victory of the season last time out.
Well, he's a tough matchup because he's got that broad and strong upper body, but he also really understands the offense. There's that back cut from Ross we were talking about earlier. The way that he was being overplayed, that was going to be there. It's going to be interesting to see how many of those it'll take to really loosen up the overplay that Morgan State is doing to prevent him from getting catches.
It was set up by Von Eyck, who had 3 assists against Hofstra. Von Eyck got overplayed that one. Ware had an open look that he missed. And now Iona in transition. They find Ross. It's a deep look. That's off the iron for Chavez. Just 2 of 12 from beyond the arc to start the season.
Good job in transition defense, though. Whenever you miss a 3, chances are it's going to lead to a long rebound and potential run-out opportunity for a team like Morgan State, so the Gales did a nice job getting back there.
Still a 10-point game in the visitors' favor. Granson had his feet set, and he knocks down his 3rd triple of the first half.
I mean, how about that? And again, the body type on him to be able to stretch the floor like that, you do not see guys up front like Granson and Baxter who can match their size and skill set very often.
Lagio Granson shot better than 30% from beyond the arc last year. And a chance at 4. Count it, and the foul as Talik Chavez knocks it down and then got knocked down, bringing us to another timeout.
Literally at the head coach Kevin Brodus' feet. Such an emphasis now. You have to go straight up and down with verticality. Make sure you don't hit that shooter on the way down, and that could be a momentum-changing play here for the Gales.
Talik Chavez at the line, the JUCO transfer from Garden City Community College, with a chance to complete the 4-point play. Rick Pitino, the Hall of Famer. First year at Iona, 32nd year overall, manning a Division I sideline. Winning percentage of 74% over the course of his career. And Chavez completes the 4-point play. Slow shooting start to his season. Casey Stanley chalking that up to shot selection.
He can really shoot the ball. That much is clear. You don't have to see it come off his hand more than once to recognize that he's got a great touch and a good stroke, and he's going to be a shot maker for this club.
Lost on the way up. Sharon Wright.
another look at that drive there. Just as it come out a little bit, I can't say I blame him. You see Nelly Jr. Joseph rotating to you, you get a little nervous.
Immediately eligible after transferring from Wake Forest, where he played for Danny Manning.
Well, that just shows you how Kevin Brodus has gone about building this roster, accumulating talent through all different levels, transfers, high school, you name it, he gets players.
Offensive.
Kevin Brodus, one of the advantages of an empty gym, you can hear pretty much all the dialogue, and the message there is pretty clear. He was moving, and he was already on his way to the basket, meaning he'd already left his feet before the defender tried to establish the guarding position.
Second foul against Trevor Moore.
The Gales gradually chipping away now, seem to be starting to get some momentum here.
Baxter matched up against Ross. Ross freed at the foul line. Automatic.
The progression in his game is just so impressive. Not sure what's going on there. We had a member of the, I believe that's the coaching staff, grab the rebound. No one was there to take it out for Morgan State. But again, the pressure is going to be a constant here from the Gales.
You ever have an urge to step across the line and suit up during your coaching days?
No. No. Not during my coaching days, not before, not since.
I'm never going to catch you like after shoot around putting some shots up?
I mean, if I was getting nostalgic, I'd jump on the stationary bike with like an iPad and watch film for an hour. That's about the extent of it, you know.
Where to trigger. This is Baxter. Rattles it down.
He's talented. You know what? Not only does he make shots with that long and wiry body type, but he's got that deep release point just over his shoulder, so it's a hard shot to bother, too. I mean, Van Eck was right there.
First bucket for Baxter. Chavez from deep. Ross, back tap, and a reset. Now it's Myers. That's down.
It's good basketball right there. Heady play by Ross. Knew he wasn't going to be able to get two hands on the ball, so he tipped it back out, and Chavez makes the extra pass to Myers, and that's what Myers did best in high school. He really shot the ball well, so he's a guy who can certainly drill open shots.
Rick Pitino giving a shout-out to his head coach, Joe Arbitello of Christ the King, for the fundamentals that Myers has shown. Granson makes another three. That's his fourth of this half.
And when you're going to play a Princeton-style offense, and even if you're just doing it in terms of running sets like Morgan State tends to do, it's such an asset and a luxury to have a big man like Granston who can really stretch the floor.
Chavez lets it rip. That's a three.
Back and forth we go.
One of the best shooters at the JUCO level a season ago knocks down his second trifecta, matching the total that he had in the first two games combined. A collision at the top of the arc. That's a foul against Myers, and that'll bring us to another timeout. Some more shot making in the last 4 minutes. Morgan State continues to lead here in the Heinz Center. Kevin Brodus is the head coach for Morgan State in his second season leading the Bears. It's his second head coaching stint after leading Binghamton to the NCAA tournament in the 07-08 year. Really spent his entire career in the Baltimore, D.C. area. 9 years as an assistant at Georgetown, over two stints where he worked under John Thompson III and became close with John Thompson. Both of them attending the introductory press conference of Brodus when he took over at Morgan State. And Brodus was one of the many head coaches on opening night who wore a white towel over his shoulder in homage to the late, great John Thompson. who, among a number of things, Brodus said, taught him the value of hard work and playing hard.
And I'm sure that was just the tip of the iceberg. Such a as big a presence as he was physically, you know, that Big John Thompson name that he went by. I mean, it wasn't just a physical description, but a description of his impact on the industry and on a number of coaches, especially in that DMV area.
10 years between head coaching stints. Just felt after the previous 2 years at Maryland that it was just time for him to get back in the head coaching ranks.
Well, it's long overdue, quite frankly. I mean, you know, the team he'd built up at Binghamton was tremendously talented, and he's proved himself time and time again as one of the top assistant coaches in the country at Georgetown and Maryland, and even prior to that. So it was long overdue. And as you can see, you know, really in only year or two, you can see the way he's flipped this roster and immediately upgraded the caliber of talent. I mean, this is a team that if they stick together and continue to ascend, has a chance to do some real damage in the MEAC this year.
Couple of chances at the rim, flicked out of bounds. It'll stay with Morgan State. Finished 6th in the MEAC last year. Preseason number 2 in the North Division this season.
Coach Pitino not happy about this. It's an interesting thing to me, Dave, is that to make a call against the team whose bench you're making it in front of, you better be really, really sure. So before we saw the 4-point play right at Kevin Brodus' feet, that time we see a possession arrow go against Iona right in front of Rick Pitino.
Ware driving in.
Good active hands on that drive, prevented what would have been an easy 2.
And illegal screen against Lagio Granson.
Now be aware of defensive pressure here from Morgan State. They've got a lot of different looks in their playbook. A lot of different trapping schemes, half-court, three-quarter court, zone coverages. And he did call out a play here before this defensive possession, so we'll see what they've got.
Just a correction, the NCAA appearance by Brodus with Binghamton was the 08-09 year, his second season and last at the helm. Tap to Chavez, who misses the runner. Morgan State wants to run. Troy Holston is off the bench and has it. 6 minutes to go, first half.
Ooh. Ran right into that screen there.
Morgan State has led wire to wire.
Started that game on such a commanding run.
And another 3 by Granson.
He is having himself a day.
That's 5 3-pointers in the first half.
Oh. Goodness gracious. I've seen balls blocked off the backboard before, but that one, I think, left a dent on the backboard. Another look at it here. Now the call comes on that, the block call there, but the weak side defender rising up and making that huge play there. Granson again. It's funny, when the ball goes in the basket a few times, you somehow have a lot more defensive energy.
So you mentioned a moment ago that the referees have to have conviction when they make a call against the team bench that they're standing in front of. Are they under more or less pressure now that there aren't any fans in the stands?
You know, honestly, it's a really good question, and I would love to know a analytic-based answer to that. I don't, you know, everybody's going to have their theories, but there have been studies to suggest that you know, the home court whistle is actually a thing.
Yeah.
And that can be measured out. Now, whether or not that's the fact that, you know, just where you are, I think a lot of it's got to do with the presence of the fans and the, you know, kind of what you're hearing in the stands. So I would love to know if those trends still exist even without fans in attendance.
And 1 for Isaiah Ross. Backdoor set up by Von Eyck. And that ends nearly a 3-minute drought without an Iona field goal.
So that's the second back cut layup for Ross. We mentioned he's being face guarded by Morgan State defensively, so they are trying to limit his touches, and as a result, they're willing to send him backdoor. They need secondary defenders to rotate over on his cuts. They did there. They were just a half second late.
Ross with 8 points. Chavez with 7, but on 2 of 9 shooting. Baxter, full head of steam. Nice feed to Lagio Granson.
It was a great feed. He zipped that one right in there. Good catch and conversion there from Granston, who's, again, having a tremendous first half, up to 17 points now. That was actually his first 2-point field goal of the half after 5 threes.
Coming off of a 19-point effort last time out. That was 6'9" to 6'8" on that connection. Von Eyck facing up and hitting it over Baxter.
Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm going to suspect that it's a good thing that ball went in. I'm not sure the face-up jab, tough two, is exactly what Coach Pitino wanted from Von Eyck, but I could be wrong.
Jean-Louis straight to the tin. Exploding past the defender and elevating to the rack. Gales to within 4.
And that is exactly what people mean when they talk about getting downhill. Watch the pace with which he gets to right here. He continues to accelerate, gets the defenders on the heels. When the defender's going backwards, you're going forwards. Nothing they can do at that pace.
Well, this roster is littered with first-year players, whether they are freshmen or transfers. Jean-Louis is one of them. So who so far in this extremely small sample size do you think has really stood out as the best of the first-year players?
Of the first-year players, I think Nelly Jr. Joseph is the guy with the highest upside. I mean, he's been both of his games so far. He has a double-double. He's flirted with it. And the other one, he's got rim protection potential. He's got some offensive versatility, terrific physical tools. But I'll tell you what. There's a lot of guys here with upside, and I know he's not a first-year player, but I really can't emphasize enough the strides that Isaiah Ross has made since last season. If you would have told me last March that he'd be averaging 28 points per game 2 games into this season, I would have said there was absolutely no way.
This is the closest Iona has been since it was 5-0, part of a 9-0 Morgan State run to open up the contest. Holston, pure from deep.
Tough shot there. Ross stayed at home, too. He didn't even bite on that penetration. He was there with a hand in his face. That's just a tough shot.
Another high major transfer for Morgan State. Holston playing at both South Florida and St. Joseph's. Chavez off the front iron. Crashing and one. Second chance opportunity for Jean-Louis.
Very impressed with him today. 6'4" wing, long, athletic, ton of defensive potential, great motor and slashing ability. Get another look at it here. Wedging out that position down low, battling 2 guys, just wanting it more, muscling up through the traffic. He's got a chance for a 3-point play.
Allow the first 9 points of the game. At one point, they were down by 13 in this first half. They're going to break the huddle and send Barrick Jean-Louis to the free throw line with a chance to complete a 3-point play and get this game back to 4. Jean-Louis with 6 points, 8 rebounds in 11 minutes. Isaiah Ross with 8 points to lead the Gales.
Well, the other thing a trip to the free throw line does for Iona, on a make, it gives you an opportunity to set your full court pressure. It is indeed what you see is this kind of denial has been a staple every time they've scored so far this half.
Ross playing tight D. Junior Joseph tried to help, but Detorian Ware floats it in.
And, you know, I think that is one of the big themes of this first half so far. Morgan State's made a lot of tough shots. I mean, they've shot the ball really well from behind the three-point line, but they've made tough shots around the rim as well.
Von Eyck, the fake, the drive, and the finish. Complete play for Dylan Von Eyck.
Yeah, that was pretty basketball. They were looking for Von Eyck to make a little touch pass to the roller there. It was not there. Credit to Morgan State's defense, but as a result, Von Eyck had a quick one-on-one opportunity that he made the most of.
Morgan State, a veteran team, returning 2/3 of its scoring, 2/3 of its minutes. That's an in-and-out 3 for Holston, who knocked down one earlier.
There's the same set again.
High-low this time. Von Eyck setting up Junior Joseph.
So that same indirect action off the ball screen where they flash that weak side big and again go indirect to the roll man. All of a sudden it is a 2-point game.
Chance to tie or take the lead for the first time today.
And let me tell you, when you had the kind of lead that Morgan State did, if Iona can take an advantage into the halftime, into the locker room at halftime, it would be huge for the momentum of this game.
Von Eyck turns the corner. Could not finish. Numbers the other way. Hesitation where? Offensive foul. Positioning there for Jean-Louis. He's doing it on both ends.
So again, Kevin Brodus thought that the Jean-Louis went down a little too early, that he didn't really take that contact. However you slice it, you got to give Jean-Louis credit for making a number of energy plays here over the course of the last few minutes.
You know, he was a player, when you broke down the scouting reports of the newcomers, some were good on offense, some were good on defense, but there was a belief that his athleticism was at such a level that he'd be able to contribute right away on both ends.
Well, athleticism without a motor isn't worth much, because you've got to play hard enough to capitalize on your physical gifts. And so far, based on what we've seen, he does that. And I think that's why his athleticism is that much more valuable.
Junior Joseph with 5 to shoot, turning baseline. Nicely done. We're deadlocked at 33.
And that is a tough shot because Morgan State had a good defensive possession there. The big fella just turned, used that high release point. It's a fortunate break for Morgan State because they were disjointed on that possession. Going to get a trip to the free throw line anyway.
Taj Malik Campbell is at the line. But I just want to hearken back a moment just to the other end. Did you think that was part of Junior Joseph's game, a turnaround baseline like that?
Well, going to get another look at it here, and you're going to see, like, listen, this isn't a polished move. If there's not 2 seconds left on the shot clock, I don't think you're going to see him go to that. But the fact that he's capable of making it means he's got the potential to make it a more consistent part of his arsenal down low. And the thing that I liked the most about it was that high release point, virtually unblockable down there.
One of the best prospects in the NBA Academy in Africa, based in Senegal. He's a Nigerian native who joined the team late in October as they worked out a visa issue to get him here. 2-point lead, Morgan State. Isaiah Ross ties it back up.
Terrific change of pace there to keep that defender frozen. Hit the gas once, hit the brakes, and then to quote Maverick, he hit the gas, he flew right by.
The steal leading to a 3-point attempt and a lead on the Chavez 3.
And again, what a burst of momentum this would be for Iona to take this lead into the locker room after the deficit they had to overcome.
They've knocked down their last 3 field goals. It's now 6 of 7. They were 1 for 8, I believe, at one point, and now shooting 50%.
It's a big shot.
And it's knocked down by Baxter.
Big shot. Exactly what Morgan State needed. Iona's got the opportunity to hold for the final shot here. The shot clock is off.
We're tied at 38. Third tie in this stretch here to close out the first half. Iona, 1 point trailed by 13. For a lot of the opening 8 minutes, they were down by double figures.
You could hear Coach Patino yell, wait. Didn't want them to go too fast.
Ross is going. Tough look off the back of the iron. No second chance opportunity. And we are back to square one with a halftime score of 38-38. Iona and Morgan State are tied at the break.
Let's run it back. That's a heck of a first half. I'm excited to see the second.
Rick Pitino's home.
Help you chill out.
Turn on post-game mode for laid-back listening with uninterrupted radio on Pandora.
Halftime between Morgan State and Iona as the Gales play their first game here in the Heinz Center for the 2020-21 season, 38 apiece. And we take a look at the Pepe Auto player comparison, leading scorer on each side.
Well, I'll tell you what. Granson was just fabulous for Morgan State. He's a guy that Iona came in expecting to have to respect from behind the three-point line, but not expecting to knock down 5 3-point shots in a single half. Again, he's essentially the center for this Morgan State team, and to be able to stretch opposing defenses like that, just a tremendous shooting display he put on in the first half. Conversely, Morgan State was determined not to let Ross get going. They were denying him the ball. They were loading up on every catch, and yet he still got 10 points. A couple of back cuts there as he continues to show off the growth in his game.
Granson, one of the best shooting bigs in the MEAC conference a season ago. Isaiah Ross proving himself to be one of the best scorers in the country this season, averaging 28 points per game. Third best in the country. Halftime here at New Rochelle, 38 apiece between Morgan State and Iona.
Listening with uninterrupted radio on Pandora.
It led for most of that first half. In fact, they were comfortably ahead for the first 10 minutes, scoring the first 9 points of the game, led by 13 at one point. And this might have been the play that really got things going for the Gales. Barrick Jean-Louis.
Well, it was very literally the play that got things going. It was their first bucket of the game because this was all Morgan State to start. I mean, they came out early. They came out hot. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, they're still shooting 8 for 14 from behind the three-point line and 50% from the floor, 100% from the free throw line. So Morgan State's offense and individual playmaking's really been at a high level here. But I thought Iona's offensive execution as the half went on was what really allowed them to get back into the game. They started to take care of the ball. They started to make better decisions within their actions on the offensive end. And as a result, we're running it back.
Well, if you had any doubt whether or not coaching matters, great adjustments by the Gales in that first half to get back into the game. At one point, taking the lead late in this first half. We are ultimately, though, tied at 38. Halftime in New Rochelle. The Gales trying to improve to 6-0 all-time against the Bears when we return for the second half. (38-38). Final moments of halftime before we get to the second half with Adam Finkelstein, David Resnick here in the Heinz Center in New Rochelle. Before we get to the second half, Adam, just wanted to make mention of a significant loss in the Gales community. 2006 graduate Pat Quinn, co-founder of the Ice Bucket Challenge, sadly passed away at the age of 37. He was recognized prior to the game with a moment of silence, and a profound loss for this community and beyond.
Indeed, and also what an impact he had, because the Ice Bucket Challenge ended up bringing such awareness throughout not just the Northeast, but the entire country and really the entire world about ALS, and also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And it was so a life that was way too short but extremely well spent, and the amount of lives that he was able to help through that awareness is probably more than we could ever say.
So the adjustments you referenced when we watched back some of the highlights from the first half, specifically on the Gales' offensive side, can you go a little bit more in depth as to what they were able to change?
Well, I think, one, they just started to take care of the ball. They started to trust their offensive system a little bit. They went to that indirect ball screen action, especially with Van Eyck in the game, where they were able to flash him and kind of go from the ball handler through him to the roll man. one of the adjustments that I think you'll see here in the second half is in regard to Isaiah Ross, because they were able to loosen up that Morgan State overplay, getting him a couple back doors. But when he gets the ball, he's seeing like 4 blue shirts. So there's really an opportunity for him to make plays for other guys and potentially come back and be more of a scorer later in the second half. That's something that Rick Pitino has talked about in the early season, not necessarily specific to Ross, but just in general when a defense is really focused on one specific player. So keep an eye on if we see that trend for Iona's leading scorer here in the second half.
Those were the Mirage halftime stats. Adam mentioned it earlier, just how well Morgan State is shooting the ball from the field. Iona did cut down on its turnovers after a few early ones. There is Ross, who is short on a 3. Leaking out, Baxter taking it on the run and throwing it down.
Well, that is just the start that Morgan State was looking for. Came out with a little half-court trap to take Iona out of whatever they drew up in the huddle. Got that run out there. And if you're the Gales, you need a better start to this half than you had in the first half.
Second team preseason All-MEAC for Baxter. Now up to 8 points as Morgan State reclaims the lead. Another good defensive play. Miller to Baxter. Granson had 5 threes in the first half and tried to dump that inside.
You got to shoot that big fella. You make 5 threes and a half, you got to let it fly.
On the other end, the finish. Barrick Jean-Louis ties it at 40.
Yeah, picking right up where he left off. Another thing to note, Nelly Jr. Joseph starting the second half when he came off the bench in the first.
Didn't really see Robert Brown, who got the
Double
start
dribble.
the rest of the first half after Junior Joseph came in.
That leak out from the very first possession of the second half. Home run pass, high-flying athleticism, just the way Morgan State wants to play.
Myers trapped. Von Eyck there to help. Now he'll look to take it end-to-end and draw the blocking foul.
But what a luxury to have a front court player who can handle the ball and make decisions like that. You saw his basketball IQ with the passing in the first half that time, able to really break that pressure by himself as Morgan State sent 2 defenders at Ryan Myers.
We saw Von Eyck last year in his first season after transferring from junior college as a energy guy off the bench. And in the offseason, Rick Pitino and company said, I believe we're going to see more of his all-around game this year. Do you agree?
Well, yeah, I think we certainly will. I think last year was such a tough year, not just for Von Eyck, but for everybody, because you were recruited to come here and play for Tim Kloos, and Tim wasn't, able to coach the team. And so it was a transition year, but really more of a year of uncertainty for so many guys. So I think just the stability that this year offers, having a defined system, clear kind of expectations, I think he's certainly going to benefit from that.
Von Eyck delayed a shoulder surgery until after he completed his national team requirements. Baxter from deep.
Now, see, you can tell. Now, Von Eyck had a hand in his face there, but you could tell from the reaction of Rick Pitino that is not enough. I mean, he wants those Morgan State players to not be able to shoot the ball.
The 9th three-pointer for Morgan State. Devonish Prince end-to-end, no. Baxter tries to follow, and just a swarm of blue jerseys on the offensive glass. Lagio Granson finishes. He's got 19 points, matching his output from the victory over Lincoln and one shy of his career high in a Morgan State uniform.
Morgan State really responding here. Give them a lot of credit. They've been the better team here through the first 2.5 minutes of this half. The shot clock buzzer went off, but it seemed like that was about a second late. Up, they say no.
Talik Chavez in, Ryan Myers out.
Yeah, the offense is just flowing better, frankly, with Chavez running the point than it is Myers so far tonight. Remember, Myers just a freshman, adjusting to being a primary ball handler on a full-time basis.
And Iona this afternoon playing a pressure defense team without really a point guard out there.
No, 100%.
Miller getting fouled.
100%. It is harder to be a freshman point guard today than it is on most other days.
As we've detailed throughout the game, Asante Gist, starting point guard, hopefully to return this weekend. A couple of matchups with Fairfield, out with a broken pinky. The pins were removed. Now his finger in a splint, and saw him after shoot-around this morning doing some one-on-one work.
Yeah, he was the first guy I saw when I walked in the building today.
And then Ryan Myers, you've described him as a combo guard.
Yeah.
Chavez, really more of a shooting guard, and they have primary ball handling responsibilities against a pressure team in Morgan State.
Yeah, it is. And Myers, combo guard, who was more 2 than 1 during his high school years.
Chavez behind a screen, rebounded by Baxter. Devonish Prince, met by Chavez.
Nice job leveling off the penetration there.
Miller's pass, stolen away by Jean-Louis. Jean-Louis pushing. A block, but a foul. A hold underneath on the way up. And just the anticipation of watching Jean-Louis in transition is something to behold.
Yeah, he's in constant attack mode there. And see how all 4 blue jerseys really swarm to that ball. He just takes up so much attention when he's able to get downhill in the open floor. Just such a dynamic athlete.
For the Gales, Robert Brown, number 10, to the game replacing Nelly Jr. Joseph.
Can't leave those free points on the board. See, now it's Iona giving Morgan State a little bit of their own medicine. Chavez doing his best to take Devonish Prince out of the play there, forcing somebody else to start offense, and has the shot clock down to 12 as a result.
Pass tipped, recovered, Moore in and out. Miller over the back. Chavez with inside positioning as he got bumped.
Yeah, he got pushed in the back, came up holding that back. Hopefully it's nothing serious.
We head to a timeout that is brought to you by North End Tavern. Morgan State up by 5.
Home test drive or to pick up and drop off your vehicle for service. The Pepe Auto Group since 1968. A name you can trust.
Last season ended so abruptly. This season with so much uncertainty that we really haven't had the opportunity to put a coda on the tenure of Tim Cluse, who resigned last March. Rick Pitino has now taken over, but what a run by the former Iona head coach.
Well, it was a historic run of unprecedented proportions. I mean, you're talking about from 2012 to 2019, he won either the MAC regular season or the MAC tournament championship every single year, if I'm not mistaken. And that's just something that's never been done before. And, we'll see if it's ever duplicated, quite frankly. I mean, that's just a historic run.
199 wins, second all-time in Iona history. We certainly wish Tim well.
Uh-oh.
Jean-Louis right down North Avenue for the slam.
Now that is a huge swing because Morgan State really wanted the call on one end, and instead it turned out to be a dunk on the other end. So potential 4-point swing. Watch Jean-Louis. I mean, he has been all over the rims here tonight. His energy and enthusiasm have been constant and contagious.
And just a closing thought, the Tim Cluse model, 12-7-4, 12 months out of the year, 7 days a week, 4 hours a day, has now been replaced by the PhD of Rick Pitino, that passionate, hungry, and driven motto. From one great coach to another.
Those are without question. And you know what's been really nice to see is the credit that Coach Pitino has given and the praise that he's had for Coach Kluse and all of his public comments since taking over. That's been, I don't know if they've had time to connect personally, but Coach Pitino has certainly given him a lot of public praise.
Baxter tried the reverse layup. He'll head to the line for 2.
So Morgan State right now, almost with like a football-like wide receiver mentality, leaking guys out in transition and doing it very effectively. So for Iona, the question is, and this is different than just your conventional get back in transition. You have to get guys back sooner now, knowing that they are releasing players to the rim almost as soon as they can test a shot.
Baxter missing the first of 2. So an exchange in the front court. Dylan Von Eyck and Robert Brown are out. Nelly Jr. Joseph and Dwayne Karoma come back in. Isaiah Ross, Barrick Jean-Louis, and Talik Chavez round out the Iona 5. Karoma.
Terrific length Karoma showed there on the open floor. Loved the size of his strides and the efficiency he was able to go coast to coast with the fewest number of dribbles possible. Tell you what, for a game that wasn't on the books for very long, this has been a high-level basketball game.
And 1. Detorian Ware spinning to the rim and a chance at 3. Karoma committing the foul, his 3rd. Ware, such a good scorer off the bench. Really has stepped up after Morgan State graduated Stanley Davis, who led the team last year in scoring, rebounding, and assists. But despite him returning the rest of their top 5 scorers, and they possess a 7-point lead with 14 minutes to go in the second half.
And they've really responded. It would have been easy to get deflated giving up that lead in the first half, but they've been anything but. They came out with energy right off the bat in the second half, and they've continued to play well.
Junior Joseph got his hands on the offensive rebound. Iona trying to call for a timeout. Instead, a held ball favors Morgan State with the arrow. Sharon Wright, Baxter, Devonish Prince. This is Moore leaking out along with Ware, the 5 on the floor for the Bears.
Tough shot.
Step back. Got it. Troy Baxter from deep over the outstretched arms of Junior Joseph.
Pushes that lead up to double figures now, and that is a big-time tough shot.
That draws an Iona timeout. Lead pushed back to double figures. Morgan State by 10.
Video on Pandora.
Now our upcoming schedule brought to you by Beachmont Tavern. And Adam, I say this to everybody. This is the schedule as of 4:21
right.
on Tuesday afternoon.
Right, subject to change. And you can see it has changed since 4:21 yesterday afternoon. It is because they're not going to Quinnipiac anymore this weekend.
Heading to Fairfield to play a couple with the Stags. Conference play continues against Ryder on the road in New Jersey. You know, in the opener against Seton Hall, the coaching staff for Iona thought the team faded in the second half. Much better effort after the intermission against Hofstra, and now we'll see what this team can put together over the final 13-plus minutes in game number 3 of the season. Well, leak out to Ware, finishing through the defense.
So, again, we see that trend there where Iona settles for jump shots. What Morgan State is doing, they are contesting, and then they are releasing for those long home run type passes, and that strategy has worked beautifully here in the second half, beginning with the first possession of the second half.
Von Eyck traveled. What do you think maybe Kevin Brodus saw that could be an avenue for them to exploit?
Well, I think that's how they play, quite frankly. I mean, they've got a lot of length, a lot of athleticism. They're trying to speed you up, turn you over defensively, and get out in the open floor. And then the other thing he does is he gives his guys freedom. So, they've played with constant energy, and to me that's the most impressive thing, because when you lose a 15-point lead, it can be very, very deflating, but they did not suffer from that. Just the opposite. They came out intent to reassert themselves here in the second half.
And they also didn't allow, as the loose ball foul called against Ware, they didn't allow Iona to build any type of lead when they took it late in that first half.
And, I think one of the most – no, you're 100% right. They responded, and what looked like it was going to be a little bit of a lead in the last couple of minutes for Iona ended up being a tie game at the half. The other thing that I notice, again, being in an empty gym, you get more of an appreciation for some of the subtleties than you would if the game were packed and there were a band and fans here, like there certainly would be in Rick Pitino's home opener. But a lot of that energy level from the Morgan State bench comes from the guys on the bench in the back of the rotation, if you will, and the assistant coaches.
Sharon Wright answers the Ross backdoor layup. 12-point game in Morgan State's favor. Drove from Baltimore last night, didn't hit any traffic. Spent the morning in New Rochelle. Will they head back to Maryland with a win? Von Eyck, no. Junior Joseph, who's been contained, finds Chavez, who will head to the line.
The message from Coach Pitino right there is he said, we're going to watch film and you're going to know why we lost. Because clearly setting the tone, what we're doing right now is not going to cut it.
It was interesting. The victory over Hofstra, that's a big win. You're on the road
without question
against a defending CAA champ, preseason #1, returned a bunch of starters from that team. But it was no cause for celebration for Rick Pitino. In fact, he cut up 60 negative plays to show the team after the victory, and that was the point of emphasis in practice and film sessions since the weekend.
Well, I think that, from everything, and I've never been in a Coach Pitino system or worked for a Coach Pitino, someone from his coaching tree, but from everyone in the coaching industry, film has always been known to be a big part of what they do, along with the individual development, but big on film and learning from it. And I think that's really connected to his NBA background, where sometimes you don't have as much practice time on the floor as you would like, but you can teach through film.
Junior Joseph will head to the line when we return. Timeout on the floor as Morgan State is up by 10. Morgan State riding a 20-8 run, 2 different spurts of 7 and then 8 points. They've really done a nice job overall of getting to the rim and also hitting from the outside.
Well, this has been a combination of 2 factors for them offensively in the second half. It has been getting out in transition and tough shot making, and you're seeing a little bit of both right here. And I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to make tough shots when you get some easy ones to help build your confidence, and that's what playing in transition does.
Nelly Junior Joseph at the line shooting 2. Leading the way for Morgan State, Lagio Granson along with Troy Baxter. 2 of their starting forwards, 19 points, 17 points respectively. A big for Iona. Nelly Junior Joseph hits a pair.
All 17 of those for Granston came in the first half. Yet to score here in the second, but he was magnificent in the first 20 minutes.
8-point game, under 12 to play. Ware baseline. Junior Joseph, great D.
Well, he left his feet, but he maintained his verticality, and that covered up a mistake, as it probably should have been a switch between 2 equals there. Chavez and Myers met on the perimeter, a little miscommunication, but the big fella covers it up.
Iona led briefly in this second half. Chavez, deep 3. Off the back of the rim. Junior Joseph, a bump of Baxter. That's just his first foul.
Teams 50.
A little bit of a mismatch here with Von Eyck guarding away from the basket.
Miller fouled by Isaiah Ross.
And a foul number 20, Isaiah Ross. Second personal, 6th team foul.
You know what? It seems like more time has gone by than it has, but we're not even at the midway point yet of this second half. Only 9 minutes off the clock so far.
So far, the second half mirroring the storyline of the first, where the opening part of the first half belonged to Morgan State, and the same could be said of the second. Teardrop, no. Junior Joseph lost it to Ware, who shot it, and then Junior Joseph the rejection, leading to the tie-up.
Another block shot. The big fella's going to learn not to bring that ball down after he secures the rebound, but then he makes up for his own mistake by turning away yet another block shot. Here comes some full court pressure now from Morgan State. Get another look at it here. So here's the initial rebound. See how that ball gets knocked out on his way down, but then covers up that mistake by yet another block shot.
If I just gave you the height of what the projected starting lineup would be for Iona, if you include Osborne Shima, and I wouldn't tell you what team it was, what conference would you think it would be in?
Well, what are the heights?
Well, if it was like 6'9" and 6'11".
Yeah,
6'7".
I mean, that's a high major caliber lineup. But I think that, listen, and it was interesting because you know, Coach Pitino got here at a time where they couldn't go out on the road and players couldn't visit campus. And he only had 3 players coming back. So essentially what you're doing is you're mass recruiting and you're selling Coach Pitino. But you can't bring guys to campus. You can't go see them play. But being able to sell a Hall of Fame coach, and not just a Hall of Fame coach, but a Hall of Fame coach who's known for developing players. I mean, when you talk about somebody like Donovan Mitchell, who was an incredible athlete in high school, but nowhere near as skilled as he was after 2 years at Louisville. I mean, not even close. It's a player development story for the ages. That's the kind of stuff that resonates with recruits.
That's your wheelhouse, recruiting. What were you hearing in March and April when Rick Pitino was going to work?
Well, what you were hearing was that they were going after higher caliber guys than you would typically see in the MAC. And to be fair, that's Tim Cluse's staff did the same thing. But again, it was a different dynamic because they couldn't go out and they couldn't bring the players here. So, and because they had so many spots to fill, they had to cast a really wide net and be ready to take kind of the first, guys that popped for them. So they were casting a wide net of all really talented guys and then rebuilding the roster on the fly in unprecedented times.
Chavez missing the open look.
They really need him to make a shot.
Thought maybe a 4-point play in the first half would get him going. 3 of 13 from beyond the arc. Entered the game 2 of 11. Granson heading to the line on the nice 2-man game on the wing.
Well, what Granston did there is he pulled Junior Joseph away from the basket and then was really mobile, cutting to the rim, trying to force it. Everybody talks about pulling big guys away from the basket in terms of making them guard the dribble, but that time he made them guard the cut. Did a nice job.
4th foul against Jean-Louis. Lagio Granson to the line. Native of the Netherlands.
You know what, David, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but he's standing about 10 inches behind the free throw line right now to shoot that free throw. You might not be able to truly appreciate that on film because I think the official is obstructing the view, but his feet are, he just kind of docked himself back a little bit again. He's about a foot back behind that free throw line. Pretty atypical.
So he's really shooting like a 16-foot free throw.
But hey, if it works, it works. It's Asante Gist. Asante Gist is in the game. Don't wait for this weekend. He's coming in now.
Asante Gist making his debut this season. Isaiah Ross kicking out to Gist, and now Chavez splashes down a three.
Great extra pass from the veteran point guard. He's back.
Second team preseason All-MAC.
That's Bernard King type stuff. Tape it up. Get him back in.
Season ended early last year with the foot injury. His season delayed this year with the pinky. We mentioned earlier he got some work in after shooting around and was intended to make his debut this weekend. And here we are. Welcome back, Asante Gist. We were so distracted by the 16-foot free throw.
That's right.
Didn't even hear Rich Leaf announce him in. I guess he's ready.
Well, whether he's ready or not, he's in. You know, I think it was pretty glaring that Iona needed some point guard play here. I'm sure he saw what we did, and certainly wouldn't be able to go in without the okay from the coaching staff and the training staff. He obviously got that, wanted to give it a shot.
Josh Thompson of the Journal News saying that Gist was not dressed in the first half, that the pin removal was yesterday, and as we've been saying, was not expected to play this weekend. So missed him perhaps in the layup lines for the second half, and he was not utilized until about the 9-minute mark in the second half.
But just having another guy to take care of the ball, make decisions with it, I mean, is just something they were desperately missing.
Well, good thing he had his jersey ready. Von Eyck on the offensive glass.
And you can see, if nothing else, it has provided a burst of enthusiasm for his team here, providing a clear emotional lift.
It's like you got to check Patino's Twitter feed daily for the news of the day, and now you got to be ready for anyone coming in. And for those fans thinking that Shima's walking in, I don't think that's happening. Stays with Iona. Osborne Shima with a significant groin injury, probably missing another month. And we get to contemplate the return of Asante Gist as we head to another timeout. Morgan State doesn't have a field goal in the last 4:34. They've only made one out of the last 7. However, their three-point shooting today overall has been terrific. Entering the game through 2, shooting 35%, but today nearly 59% from beyond the arc. As for Iona, just 5 of 23, 21%. A lot of that can be attributed to the 4 for 14 on Chavez's line.
And almost every other major statistic is relatively close, but one team shooting 59% from 3, the other team shooting 22%. That right now is the difference. Great pivot. Oh. Good reaction, though, by the big fella. Maybe lifted that pivot foot up a half a second too soon, but that was a heck of an instinctive read. Great cut. Terrence Ross got caught dribbling at the, staring at the ball handler at the dribble at. Beat back door.
Asante Gist entered this game with Iona down 8. Trailing by 10, feeds it Junior Joseph. Too hot to handle on the bounce pass. Devonish Prince could not finish. It is a loose ball.
Morgan State very quick to the ball right now. They seem to have an extra pep in their step right now.
Rick Pitino screaming out, no reset.
To which the Morgan State staff responding, it hit the rim.
As you mentioned, it is pretty great, our ability to listen in. We are not courtside. We're up in the stands, and yet we still have the opportunity to hear pretty clearly the thoughts of both head coaches.
Well, it also changes the dynamic of the way the game is played, because now your opposition can hear everything you're saying too, including the other coaches. So from a strategic point of view, it's a tweak to how things are normally orchestrated, and I do think it changes the complexion of the game.
So a big storyline coming in was this idea of Rick Pitino making his home coaching debut. On the MAC conference call earlier this week, he said it's really not the same without the fans, without the pomp and circumstance. And so while he acknowledged that it was his debut, he didn't really consider it as such. And in a year, Adam, where you said that flexibility will be key, and the unknown will be present all the time, as we take another look, and the shot clock reset to 16 here. Does hit the rim, and so that was a reset to 20, collecting the offensive rebound. Asante Gist, talk about flexibility, someone who we didn't expect to see. The unknown of today.
I think he'd just seen enough. He'd seen enough of the team that was really lacking a point guard out there.
You can see that pinky on his right hand wrapped up as
hit.
Gist bumps into the shooter on the closeout, and it's Baxter shooting two. Or excuse me, will shoot three, as the foul was committed by number 2, Asante Gist. Second year for Kevin Brodus, the head coach. Last year they won 15 games, highest win total in 6 seasons. And I asked him where he was, how he assessed the program, and he said he was still trying to figure it out. Last year he said wasn't good enough. This is a team that has NCAA aspirations. They went there a couple of times under their last head coach.
You have NCAA caliber talent too.
13-point game in favor of the Bears. Gist, pull up, short. Morgan State running. There's Baxter, 4-3.
It just felt like you were waiting for an Iona run, but instead you've just been treated to Morgan State pulling away here, extending this lead to 16.
The two bigs for Morgan State, Lagio Granson and Troy Baxter, each with 5 3-pointers. They are a combined 10 of 13.
Yeah, bigs is almost a misleading word, because the skill set they've shown, and I'll tell you what that does when you have bigs who can stretch the floor, it opens the lane up. And so, we've alluded to the fact that they run some Princeton-style concepts is preliminary action from which to attack with. Not as regimented as the original Princeton offense by any stretch. But by opening up the lane and letting your skilled bigs operate on the perimeter, you have room to cut. You have room to let these driving guards make plays off the bounce. And that makes you very hard to guard, especially on nights like tonight when they are 11 of 18, 61% from the three-point line.
So 10 out of the 11s from their bigs.
Oh, they called it up. Wow. So you had, Granston fell into the lane. Get another look at it here. You're going to see Granston fall into the lane, but they actually called that's a horrible call. They called the violation on Nelly Jr. Joseph and waved off the made free throw. Wow, that was bad. I've got no other words, but that was bad.
Baxter falling away. Rebounded by Junior Joseph. Ross catch and shoot. It's an air ball long.
He hasn't been able to get anything going here this half. You got to give the Morgan State defense a ton of credit. Has limited him to just 2 points here in the second half.
Gist reaching in. Gist committing the foul on the drive. Trevor Moore spent part of 2 seasons at Cincinnati, one of 5 of the top players who transferred in. He's played a couple of years under former Rick Pitino assistant Mick Cronin at Cincinnati.
Yeah, and you know, he's a guy who, we don't use this term quite as much in college as we do in the NBA, but is really a 3-and-D type player. Over 50% of his field goal attempts from behind the three-point line, but he can really defend too, as we've seen so far here today. A
leading pass to Gist. Cleaned up by Jean-Louis. 15-point game, 5:25 remaining. Isaiah Ross subbed out.
See, that's the Princeton-style offense again. It's not that they're running that regimented system, but they are getting cuts off the ball to keep those weak side defenders honest.
22 points for Lagio Granson. A new high in a Morgan State uniform in his career. $17 of those came in the first half. Myers bouncing to the baseline for Jean-Louis on the floor with 4 fouls. 15 points to Ty Chavez for the team high.
And he has really been the bright spot here. His work around the rim with his athleticism and high motor has really shown been impactful today and shown a very bright future as well.
Miller driving and draws the whistle.
That's going to be 5.
Jean-Louis has fouled out. 7 of 9 from the field for 15 points and 11 rebounds. A double-double for Barrick. Omar Rowe checking in. His first appearance in today's game. Did not play last time out against Hofstra. Born in Queens, played locally at both Lincoln High School in Brooklyn and Sacred Heart of Connecticut. Good trip for Miller. Iona staring at a 17-point deficit. Von Eyck, double dribble. Iona unraveling here late in the second half.
Yeah, just out of sorts, not in a good rhythm, clearly frustrated here. You know, these kids wanted to deliver a win for Coach Pitino in his home opener. And obviously just not playing the way they had hoped here today.
I know we ask color analysts to play predictors and coaches and mind readers. What do you think Rick Pitino's thinking about right now in the final 4 minutes in terms of messaging to his team?
Well, I'll tell you what I just noticed at the end. There's not the frustration externally that you would think. The last communication was, that's a switch there, son. So continuing to teach, continuing to stay positive, recognizing this is just the 3rd game of the season. They got a long way to go.
Morgan State just a couple minutes away from a big-time road win.
The way outer.
Pepe Auto play of the game. Very early in the second half. just when Morgan State was starting to take control, Troy Baxter leaking out and slamming it down in transition. A sign of things to come, Adam, for the Bears in the second half.
And I think that was the very first possession of the second half, wasn't it? It came out and just really set the tone because, again, Iona went into the locker room with the momentum. And not only did they get the early dunk and the energizing play, but it was just the way they want to play. Get a stop, get a leak out, and it really did prove to be a sign of things to come because they continued to release guys and get out in transition throughout the course of this half, and it really paid big dividends.
Baxter with 25 points, 7 rebounds. Six seconds on the shot clock. Chavez just drives into Granson, and Laggio stands his ground. Isaiah Ross is out. Von Eyck is out. Asante Gist is out.
Valiant effort, though, by Asante Gist, who was obviously trying to give his teammates a shot in the arm here.
Rowe hacks Miller, and he heads back to the line. Gist came off the bench for 6 minutes. Was a -7 in his brief appearance, so just could not give Iona the shot in the arm they needed ultimately after assisting on a 3 early in his brief appearance.
So, David, you had asked what Coach Pitino's mentality was here, and everything we've heard, and again, we can hear more than we normally would tonight, but everything we've heard has been just complete commitment to the fundamentals. Any blockout missed, correcting it. Any defensive switch missed, correcting it. So I think it's just the consistency of which the message and recognizing that this is, really early on in the process. Even his work abroad last year, talk about the way that team grew over the course of the season. That's really where the greatness of the coaching comes from. Not from getting guys to the finish line in the third game of the year, but by the length of the distance covered when it's all said and done.
A lot of optimism surrounding the program after the victory over the weekend. Perhaps dimmed after this effort, but as you said, this is very much a marathon and not a sprint, especially with so many young players. 7 of them making their Division I debut this season. And an 8th, Osborne Shima, expected back sometime in January. Perhaps the most heralded of the incoming class for 2020.
And when you zoom in on any progression, nothing is completely linear. There's going to be bumps in the road. So this game, certainly not what they hoped. The win over Hofstra, certainly a high point. There will be more highs and lows as the year goes on, but the point is that as you zoom out, you will see that continued linear progression.
Laggio Granson has just committed his 5th foul. The best offensive performance of his Morgan State career has come to a close, scoring 22 points on 8 of 9 shooting, including 5 3-pointers. Carried the team offensively in the first half and gave way a bit more to Baxter after the break.
And I'll tell you what a showing from Kevin Brodus' squad. I mean, this is a team that, and listen, I know they shot the ball tremendously well tonight. I mean, right at the moment, the totals are, 47% from the floor, 58% from the three-point line, and 88% from the free throw line. So they've shot it beautifully. But there is a ton of talent here, and a ton of talent to have a really special season, even amidst these unprecedented and chaotic times.
They'll next play Bellarmine. Baxter traveled, who's new to Division I. They were supposed to have a game against Navy right after that, but that got canceled yesterday. Every team really just trying to find its footing with an ever-evolving schedule.
And you know what it does, too? When you have something like you're supposed to play Quinnipiac this weekend and then it moves to Fairfield, it does not make the lives of assistant coaches a whole lot of fun, because the level of preparation that goes into those scouts, and now you have to redo another scout from scratch at the 11th hour. I mean, that is a daunting task.
Morgan State calling timeout. 30-second timeout taken by the Bears. Morgan State has it on the baseline. Good opportunity this year to follow the Gales through all of their social media platforms. Between those outlets and home broadcast streamed on ESPN3 and ESPN+, best chances to stay up to date on everything Iona basketball related. We thank you for joining us this afternoon. Also want to thank our sponsors, the Hospital for Special Surgery, Professional Physical Therapy, The Mirage, Pepe Auto, Beachmont Tavern, and North End Tavern.
Good move.
Trevor Moore adding 2 more.
Tell you what, if you can shoot the ball as well as he does, and you can get into the lane and make changes of direction like that, that is a impressive player. And add on top of that the defensive production we saw from him tonight.
Final minute of play. Iona briefly took a 2-point lead early in the second half. Ryan Myers, a driving reverse layup. Morgan State responded with 7 in a row to take a 5-point lead, and they never looked back. Last 17 minutes has been all Bears. Smooth sailing last night up from Baltimore. Kevin Brodus noting there wasn't even traffic on the bridge. And they're relatively gliding through this afternoon against the Gales.
I see what you did there. No, that was clever.
Trying to amuse myself in the final minute, really.
Yeah.
You know?
Well done.
I'm still thinking about you on the stationary bike watching the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you got to watch the games, you might as well watch them on the bike.
Yeah, assistant coaches this year are really going to earn their keep.
Oh,
huh?
it's not a fun time. No, it's really not. And then you ask yourself the amount of preparation, because there's 2 ways to go into it. Your life can just be really miserable, and you have to adjust.
What's the other option?
Well, the other option, honestly, is do teams de-emphasize scouting? Do they start to worry more about themselves than they do about preparing for the opponent? There are some teams that will do that. I'm not sure how many, but this is not going to be an easy year. And let's face it, this isn't an easy year for people in all walks of life. But college coaches have their work cut out for them with this scheduling the way it is.
Myers launching and knocking down a 3. Some window dressing here as the final seconds tick off. 83-72, the final in favor of Morgan State, who come on the road here to New Rochelle and take down the Iona Gales.
Heck of a win for Morgan State. Better days ahead for the Iona Gales, no question about that. But Kevin Brodus has a club that is going to be very, very relevant in the MEAC this year.
Morgan State improving to 2-1 on the season, picking up their first road victory in their first attempt. Iona drops to 1-2 on the year, losing the home opener here this afternoon against Morgan State. As we mentioned, things are ever-changing, so be sure to check out all the outlets of Iona basketball to see who their next opponent will be or won't be. But we'll be here at the Heinz Center throughout the season bringing you Gales basketball. So with that, for Adam Finkelstein and our entire crew, I'm David Resnick. The final, once again, 83-72. Morgan State takes down Iona. Thanks so much for joining us from New Rochelle.